is fabulous. My name is Elizabeth Warren, and I'm the woman who's going to beat Donald Trump. I am also going to help take back the Senate and put Mitch McConnell out of a job. So, here we are, Michigan. You've got exactly 1 week until you start voting. As you know, right now, voting is going on in California and Massachusetts, pretty much still all over this country. I know results will still keep coming in through the night. But what I see happening is a lot of folks trying to turn voting into some complicated strategy. You know, pundits, friends, neighbors are all saying you have to second guess yourself on this. They're playing games about prediction and strategy. You know, guess what your neighbors are up to here. But prediction has been a terrible business, and the pundits have gotten it wrong over and over. So here's my advice. I've got some advice that I want to start with tonight. So here's my advice. Cast a vote that will make you proud. Cast a vote from your heart. And vote for the person you think will make the best president of the United States of America. Because I want you to think for a minute about this democracy. You are the ones who get to pick the person who will be the next president, and it is an awesome thing. You are going to do it right here in Michigan next week. People are doing it in California right now, and that's what it means to have a democracy. I'm in this race because I believe I will make the best president of the United States of America. Tell you why. I was not born a politician, but I was born a fighter. And I want you to know this. Is this on? Good. I want you to know this. I got to have a loud voice here. I come by this honest. I think that maybe the reason I've fought all my life is because I learned this from my mother. I want to tell you a story about me. I grew up in Oklahoma. Okay, we got a few Okies here. I grew up in Oklahoma. I am the baby. I have 3 much older brothers. They all went off and joined the military. I am what used to be called a late in life baby. My mother always just called me the surprise. Yep, my 3 brothers are all retired. They're back in Oklahoma now. To this day, they are referred to as the boys. That's to distinguish them from the surprise. Now, when I was in middle school, all 3 of the boys were gone by then, and it was just my mama and my daddy and me. And my daddy had a heart attack. He pulled through, but he couldn't work for a long, long time. And I still remember the day when we lost the family station wagon. I remember how my mother used to tuck me in at night, and she would always kiss me and give me this big smile, and I knew what was coming next. She'd leave my room, close the door, and then I'd hear her start to cry. She never wanted to cry in front of me, and I knew that. This is when I learned words like mortgage and foreclosure. And one day, I walked into my folks' bedroom, and laid out on the bed was the dress. Now, some of you in this room will know the dress. It's the one that only comes out for weddings, funerals, and graduations. And there, down by the foot of the bed, was my mother. And she had on her slip, and she was in her stocking feet, and she was pacing back and forth. And she was saying, "We will not lose this house. We will not lose this house. We will not lose this house." She was 50 years old. She had never worked outside the home, and she was terrified. So she looks up and she sees me standing in the doorway. I'm just a kid. And she looks at me, and she looks at that dress, and she looks back at me, and she walks over and she pulls that dress on. She puts on her high heels, and she walks to the Sears, where she gets a full-time minimum wage job answering phones. And that minimum wage job saved our house, and it also saved our family. And that is the first lesson my mother taught me. And that is, no matter how scared you are, no matter how hard it looks, you get out there and you fight for the people you love. It's what I believe. It's what I believe. And here's the thing about that story. I've always carried that in my heart. You want to know who I am? There it is. But I'll tell you another thing about that story. That story is a story about my mother. It's a story about millions of people all across this country who do this every single day. But it is also a story about government. Because understand this, when I was a kid, a full-time minimum wage job in America would support a family of 3. It would cover a mortgage, it would pay the utilities, and it would put food on the table. Today, a full-time minimum wage job in America will not keep a mama and a baby out of poverty. That is wrong, and that is why I am in this fight. And I'll tell you something else about that. That change did not happen by accident. That change was not the result of gravity. That change happened because of who government works for. When I was a kid, the question asked in Washington for setting the minimum wage is, what does it take a family of 3 to make it in America's middle class? What does it take a family to have something solid they can build on? What does it take a family to be able to just get a toehold in this economy and build something going forward? Today, the question asked in Washington for setting the minimum wage is, what will maximize the profits of giant multinational corporations? Well, I don't want a government that works for giant multinational corporations. I want one that works for our families. And I got a plan for that. In fact, I got a lot of plans for that. So I want to tell you just a little story. I'm going to skip over a bunch of stuff. I just want to tell you a little story about what it means to get in a fight. So in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, I was watching what was happening. I was studying families that go broke. And what I was starting to see over and over were people who were getting cheated on mortgages, that they had their own homes already. And someone would come and sell them a mortgage to refinance their home, and by golly, refinance them right out of it. And the banks were making more and more money, and more families were getting hurt. They started out by targeting communities of color, African American homeowners, Latinx homeowners. They went after seniors. And I started ringing alarm bells everywhere I could. We got a real problem over here. And here's what I discovered. Nobody wanted to hear it. When your ears are stuffed with money, it's hard to hear. The banks kept on selling those mortgages, and the regulators just looked the other way. The regulators were so deep in the pocket of the banks, they couldn't even hear what was going on. And sure enough, economy crashed in 2008. We just loaded up on that much debt, brought it down. But I hope you all feel better. The banks got bailed out. Millions of families got left behind. Families right here in Detroit got left behind. Millions of people lost their jobs. Millions of people saw their pension funds shrink. Over and over, this pain was felt by families all across this country. So I decided at this point, wait a minute, we're going to make it through this crisis. There's going to be financial reform. By golly, this financial reform is going to have some protection to make sure that we never wreck this economy again with a bunch of banks cheating people. So I had this idea for an agency, right? Man, that sounds sexy. So I had this idea for this agency, and the basic idea is the same as the idea behind the safety. We have Consumer Product Safety Commission. You can't sell a toaster in America that has a 1 in 5 chance of burning down your house. You shouldn't be able to sell a mortgage that has a 1 in 5 chance, which these did, of costing a family their home. So that's the basic idea. And I wanted an agency. I don't want a single law. I wanted an agency because I knew the banks will rework these things. They'll give it another name. They'll figure out how to rewire it. So I wanted an agency that would have one job, just to be on the side of families, to make sure they don't get cheated on, let's make it all of it, mortgages, credit cards, payday loans, student loans. You don't get cheated on financial products. So that's the basic idea. So I go to Washington. Now, remember, I'm not in elected office. That's not my job. I'm a full-time teacher and researcher. Let's hear it for the nerds. Yes. So I go to Washington, and basically I knock on doors. Anybody who'll talk to me, Democrat, Republican, I don't care. I'm just trying to pitch the idea for this agency. We're in a crisis. We're going to rewrite the laws. Let's get this agency in it. And here's what happened. Basically, I started getting the same 2 answers from everybody. It's just really knocked me over. And the first answer was, that's actually a pretty good idea. You could make a real difference. That's structural change. That would actually make a difference in the market. And the second half to the answer was, don't even try. You'll be up against the banks. You'll be up against Wall Street. You'll be up against all of the Republicans, and shoot, you'll be up against half the Democrats on this. You will never get it done. Now, I get it. So I heard this and I thought, I get it. Big structural change is hard, but it is the right thing to do. So we got in this fight and took on the big banks. They were spending more than $1 million a day for nearly a year, just trying to fight back against this and the other financial reforms. But boy, this was the heart of it. They were out there. We fought the Republicans. We fought them all. But we built the coalitions. And in 2010, Barack Obama signed that agency into law. Dang. And here's the thing. That little agency has now forced the banks to return more than $12 billion directly to people they cheated. So I take away 2 lessons from that. The first is you don't get what you don't fight for. I am in this fight. And the second, and this is really important, after 40 years of Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics, the second, I see you've heard of Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics. Can we just all stop and say it has been a monumental failure for American families? But the second lesson I learned about this agency, as we built this agency, is we can make government work for the people. And that's what this agency has done. And that's why being here with you tonight is about 2 things for me. It's about the fight, but it's also about the hope. It's about what we will be able to do together. So that's why I'm here. Let's take some questions and do this. Who have we got? Let's do this. Okay. Let's do some questions. Let's do some questions. Who's got questions tonight? Where are our questions? Over here? No, where are our questions? We drew these early. Oh, everybody's pointing. Good. Okay. Oh, here we go. Hi.
Okay, perfect. Hi. My name's Andrew Priest. I'm a middle school teacher.
Hey, Andrew.
Thank you. At a lovely public school in the city of Detroit. I have a million questions to ask, but I'll stick to one.
Okay.
Many people know that schools are underfunded, but I don't often hear people talk about more equitable funding.
Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready. Let me do this, Andrew.
Could you talk to us about how you will make school funding more equitable for students, no matter where they live?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Andrew. Okay. So look, here's the deal. I tried to skip over too much, but I got to tell you all, I have known what I wanted to be since 2nd grade. Yeah, I know some of you in the back didn't decide until what, like 4th grade? 5th grade, way in the back. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Since 2nd grade, I have wanted to be a public school teacher. Can we hear it for our public school teachers? That's it. And I just want you all to know, I started early. I used to line my dollies up and teach school. I had a reputation for being tough but fair. It's all I ever wanted. I had a very bumpy path to get there, but I made it. I was a special education teacher. Now, I love that work. We have public school teachers in here. I'm going to need you to back me up on this, okay? But here's the thing. It's not a job. It is a calling. I had 4 to 6-year-olds in special education. I love this work. I would probably still be doing this work today. But at the end of my very first year in teaching, I was visibly pregnant. And the principal did what principals did in those days. Wished me luck and hired someone else for the job. And that's how I ended up going to law school and then right back into teaching. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. I truly believe that if we're going to build a future in America, look, roads and bridges are powerfully important. I get it. I get all the things we need to do to produce an infrastructure so that we've got opportunity. But boy, we've got to invest in the education of all of our children. So here's my plan for that. It's time for a wealth tax in America. Yes. Oh, you already know. So I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page here. This is a 2-cent tax on fortunes above $50 million. Your first $50 million, free and clear. I see a guy in the back. This woman is not unreasonable. But on your 50 millionth and first dollar, you've got to pitch in 2 cents. 2 cents on every dollar. After that, you hit $1 billion, you got to pitch in a couple of pennies more. That's the basic idea. And just so everybody's tracking on this, anybody in here own a home or grew up in a family that owned a home? Yeah, well, you guys have been paying a wealth tax. It's just called a property tax. And all I'm saying is for the bazillionaires, how about if we include not just the real estate, but also the stock portfolio, the diamonds, the Rembrandt, the yacht? That's the basic idea. Now, you may have heard there are some billionaires who don't like this. One went on TV and cried. It was so sad. Another ran for president. Guess he thought it would be cheaper than a wealth tax. But their argument is, look, I worked hard. I, stayed up late. I did this all the time. I had a great idea. You shouldn't punish me. And I said, oh, wait. You made a big fortune here in America. Good for you. Good for you. I think that's great. But here's the deal. I guarantee that if you built a fortune here in America, you built it at least in part using workers all of us help pay to educate. You built it at least in part getting your goods to market on roads and bridges all of us help pay to build. You built it at least in part protected by police and firefighters all of us help pay the salaries for. And we're Americans. We love doing this. We want to make these investments in opportunity. All we're saying is when you make it big, I mean really big, I mean top 0.1% big. Pitch in 2 cents so everybody else gets a chance to make it. Because now we get to your question. What can we do with 2 cents? And here's where I want to start. I want to expand how we think of public education. With 2 cents, we can provide universal child care and universal early childhood education for every child in this country. 0 to 5. Universal pre-K for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old in America. And we can stop exploiting the people, largely African-American women and Latinas who do this work. We can raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher in America. And that starts the answer because that's equal funding for every one of our children. Goes straight to our communities, comes straight here to Detroit. But there's more. We can make an historic investment in public education. That 2 cents will do all that for our babies, plus an $800 billion federal investment in all of our public schools. Let's lift it up. And when you ask me about equalizing, that plan quadruples the funding for Title I schools. That's how we level this out. And one more, you'll hear this from the heart of a special education teacher. For the first time in history, we will fully fund IDEA so every child with a disability will get the education that child deserves. It is time in America to say that investing in our children is not just a local obligation, not just a state obligation. It is the obligation of a nation that wants to build a future. So there's some more parts to this plan because it turns out 2 cents on that top 0.1% produces a lot of money. I'll just mention we can also do post-high school education, technical school, 2-year college, 4-year college, tuition free. We can put $50 billion into our historically black colleges and universities. Same 2 cents. And just one more thing. We can cancel student loan debt for $43 million. So there it is. 2 cents. 2 cents. Okay, good. I love that question. Okay, who's next? Who's next? Hi. Hi. Tell me your name.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Seifert.
Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, too.
I want to thank you for your campaign, which has been amazing as a woman to see your spirit. And the way you handle all the misogyny thrown at you, it's pretty badass. My question is, with Trump, our prestige, our reputation, our relationships around the world have really suffered.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, what will you do to go about repairing those relationships and restoring our reputation?
Good. So thank you for the question, and I like the way you frame it. And, the way I see it, it is the job of the President of the United States to keep America safe. And part of that is that we need a strong military. As I said, all 3 of my brothers served. It's important to support our military. We have the finest military in the world. And they have committed to make any sacrifice for us. Their families sacrifice for us. But that means that we have a sacred obligation to them not to send our military to try to solve problems that can't be solved militarily. That's step 1. So that means we need to look at all the tools in the toolbox when we think internationally. Donald Trump has stripped down the State Department, and this is just dumb. I'm sorry, there's just no other way to describe it. Our State Department, these are the people who are our eyes and ears around the world. They represent America. They know the local culture. They know the local history. They know the local politics. They tell us in advance where there's trouble and what we need to focus on. And we have just decimated what's going on at the State Department. So one of the first things I will do as president is I will bring the State Department back up to full staff. We just got to support our State Department. Third part, and I'll just mention briefly, are our economic tools. We need a strong economy here at home that doesn't just work for a thin slice at the top, doesn't just work for 5 giant banks. We have an economy that we build from the grassroots up that puts us in a much stronger position to work around the world with the rest of the nations. Fourth part I want to mention, the importance of allies. I know this is going to seem really tough, but I think we ought to know the difference between our friends and the people who would do us harm, and we ought to treat our friends better than the people who would do us harm. I don't think we ought to cozy up to dictators. And I don't think we ought to cut and run on our allies and abandon them. So much of that, working with our allies, is going to go a long way, but I got to mention one more. When you think about what we try to accomplish internationally and the importance of working with our allies, we also have to remember that leadership happens by example. And what Donald Trump has been doing down at our border has not only been shameful to us as a people, it has put us in a terrible position around the world. The world looks at what happens at our border, and they say the United States has lost moral authority, has lost leadership. So understand this. I will not take away children from their families. I will not lock up children in cages. I will close for-profit detention centers. And I will work every single day to make sure that this country is living its values. I will do my best as president to make you proud of the United States of America in all of our dealings. Good. Gotta do this. Good. Thank you. I like that. I'm gonna do this. You guys are so good. Thank you. Oh. Okay. We got one more question over here. Oh my gosh.
That was so weird. I'm so sorry.
No.
So I think we have time for 2 more questions.
2 more questions.
So I'm going to pull them, and we're going to do the same thing. This is Willa. And so we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to read the number. You're going to yell persist, and you're going to make it over here, right? Okay.
Okay. Right over here. Okay.
9927239.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay, come on over.
Did we find it? Okay.
Yeah, somebody yell bingo. Do not remove the beans from your card yet. We will verify that number.
All right. 9927243.
Was there one? Oh, okay. That's no.
Okay.
243.
Here, we got it.
We got it? We got it? All right. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Willa. All right. Good. Okay. So we're going to do some more questions. Okay. Hi. Hi.
Hello, my name is Dion Freeman. I'm
Hi,
from
Dion.
Flint, Michigan. Good to have you here.
Woohoo.
I have a question for the city of Flint and for the state of Michigan.
Yep.
We are surrounded by water, and we are a natural water resource for America. Mm-hmm. Nestle Company is chipping us out of our natural resources. And before we became an industrialized state, we were all about agriculture.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to help preserve our natural resources and get back water, clean water, back as a natural human right? Because
all right.
We're still paying for water that we cannot use in Flint, Michigan.
So, thank you for the question. Water is life. And so we need to protect our water. But here's the thing to understand, because here's how I hear that question. What I really hear that question as is, look what happens when government works for giant corporations instead of working for the rest of us. Because this isn't about a problem with the water that's occurred naturally, right? This is about a giant corporation that's come in and said, I can boost profits by sucking it all up for myself and then discharging my filth, right? And that's making poor decisions for the people. So here's the question. Why does the government let them do that? Mm-hmm. Money talks, right? Money talks. No, it's not just greed. It is greed. Oh, yeah. But it's, think about it, it's corruption. It's the greed may not change. The question is, our government is the part that's supposed to be on our side. Let me just think about how this works over and over and over. We have a government that works great for giant drug companies, just not for people trying to get a prescription filled. It works great for people who want to make money by investing in private prisons and private detention centers, just not for the human beings whose lives are torn apart by those places. We have a government that works great for giant oil companies that want to drill everywhere, just not for the rest of us who see climate change bearing down upon us. And whether it's on water resources or on pollution, whether it's on permitting these factories to be located over and over and over in communities of color, where they destroy the water, they destroy the air, whatever it is, understand this. When a government works great for those with money, and it's not working so well for anyone else, that is corruption, pure and simple. And whatever issue brought you here tonight, whether it's the water, whether it's gun violence, whether it's health care, whether it's student loans, whether it's immigration, if there is a decision to be made in Washington, I guarantee it has been influenced by money. It has been shaped by money. It has had exceptions carved out by money. Most of it never even makes a headline, just a little change year by year by year, until this whole country, this whole economy, this whole democracy works for a handful at the top and leaves everyone else behind. So for me, we have to make a first priority of not just backing up on the money issue and say, oh, we can't do anything, or nibbling around the edges. It is time for an anti-corruption bill in Washington. We got to get on our front foot and fight back. So here's the good news. I have the biggest anti-corruption plan since Watergate. Here's the bad news. We need the biggest anti-corruption plan since Watergate. So the importance of this is to get our government on our side. So they're regulating on our side in your specific case. But let me just give you a sample of what's in this anti-corruption plan. How about we start with end lobbying as we know it? Block the revolving door between Wall Street and Washington. Block the revolving door between the big polluters and the EPA. We got to do this. Block the revolving door between the big drug companies and the FDA. I could do these all night long. I'm going to mention just one more. You really want to hose out some corruption in Washington? Make everyone who runs for public office put their tax returns online. So this is it. This is a democracy. We got this chance in 2020 to beat back the corruption, and that means put our government on our side. That's how we're going to fix this problem. Thank you. Good. Oh, I love you guys. We're going to do this. Yes, we're going to do this. Okay.
All right, Senator.
Another question.
We have time for one last question.
One last question. Yep. Okay. Hi. Who we got?
Hi. My name is Brianna.
Hi, Brianna.
Hi. So I don't know if you noticed on your drive here, but we have some pretty bad roads here in Michigan. So do you have a plan to invest in our infrastructure or our roads?
And you're not going to be surprised by this. The answer is, of course, I have a plan for this. But you know, instead of doing a lot of detail on this, you can look, and I hope anybody does. Go to ElizabethWarren.com. You can kind of see all the pieces here. But you've got what the music is now, right? The heart of this is two parts. We got to ask those at the top to pay a little more. I use the 2-cent wealth tax, but it's more than this. Giant corporations like Amazon and Eli Lilly and Halliburton reported billions of dollars in profits last year and paid zero in taxes. That is not right. We have to ask those at the top to pay a little more. That's how we have enough money for infrastructure. And the second part is what we were just talking about. We have got to be willing to pick up our regulatory tools and use them on behalf of the people. Trickle-down economics, we were talking about it a minute ago. Trickle-down economics, just think about it this way. From 1980 basically forward, what has been the principle? How does it work? It's help the rich and powerful get richer and more powerful. And how do you do that? You cut taxes for those at the top. That's how they get richer. And you cut regulations. That's how they get more powerful. It is time for us in America to say trickle-down economics has been a failure. We're